So every now and then you get a chance to work your ass off all weekend and reach out to a guy named Jeremy who's throwing an event down the street. You get a chance to chop it up and talk about what he's doing.
Yeah, let's do it.
No, that's my intro. How
Oh,
you doing, Jeremy?
okay. Sorry.
So tell me a little bit about what you got going on the 22nd here in Vegas.
Yeah, it's called a Business Leaders Summit, and we had about a week after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I decided to with 6 days notice, I decided to do a speaking event, a little networking and speaking event, and then I reached out to a couple friends of mine. One was Paul Mark Goulet, who was the head of the pastor of the largest church in Nevada for 29 years, and he was in Canada. I told him, what I wanted to do, and he's like, "Let's do it." He flew back from Montreal and spoke at my event, and also a friend and mentor of mine who's his name's Michael Sartain. He
I know
runs an
Michael,
organization, yeah, Men of Action. He's also former armed
Air
or
Force.
Air Force captain and pilot, and so he's one of friend and mentor of mine. I said, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. We need, we're all business leaders, and we need to speak up. It's time for." Being quiet and receding into whatever you want to recede into is over. And it's bad for business to do that. And I didn't realize that before. And when I saw what happened, I did, not speaking the truth and just being silent. I was like, that's fine. Let everyone live their life how they want to, as long as it, doesn't, impede into my life and my freedom. It doesn't really affect me. It's none of my business really, and I do believe that. And but with what happened, it showed that you can't just disagree with people anymore. You can't just stay silent. You have to, like I said,
No, no, actually,
or
I think it's the opposite.
something
I
like
think
that's going to happen. And so that's how it all came together, and it went very well in very short notice. And people were asking for for when the next one was, and so that was my cue to
do it
get it
again.
going. Yeah, and
Run it up
yeah,
again.
exactly. Long
It's funny
story
you
short.
say you can't disagree with people. I actually think we need to get back to being able to have civil disagreement. I think we need to get back to saying, hey, you know what? I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the way you're promoting people live their lives. I don't agree with that. And I think people need to be able to have civil discourse. That's the one thing that Charlie Kirk did. He created a platform where people disagreed with each other, but they had dialogue.
Right, exactly.
And they couldn't shut them up through their arguments, so they killed them.
Right. And so that's not how this country was founded. It's not how it works.
No.
Never was.
Nope.
From
And
the beginning, from the inception of this country. My background, I have a bachelor in American history, and I have my JD from UNLV as well. And so looking
shout out
back,
rebels.
go UNLV, let's go.
Let's go. So
So yeah,
talk a
so
little.
yeah, that's it never was like that. Never, even in the beginning. There's huge disagreements. They even
Well,
meant
no,
they hated
actually,
each other.
actually, just so we're clear, in history, in American history, there was a time where we disagreed with the United Kingdom, and we said, you know what? We don't agree with your tyranny, so we're going to set up our own rules, and we're going to get away from you guys.
Right. But from that point on, from the inception of the country, the men that formed the Constitution didn't agree with each other. Most of them didn't. And uh, but they still compromised, and they didn't murder each other over it. They still went forward, even though they disagreed. And some hated each other personally, but they still went past that. And that set the table for what we have, 250 years later.
Well, there was that guy, John Wilkes Booth, and, Abraham Lincoln. You know,
There's always going to be people that, like you said, that want to take, forget speech and just want to commit violence, and they think that's going to end it. But the framing of this country was formed on not that, on disagreeing but compromising, and still working together and living together. And with men that the men wanted to rather live with each other than kill each other, and that's really how everything was formed. And that's not how like you said, we did want to break away from king rule in from England, but from
thank
that
God.
point,
Look at how they're living their lives now. Holy
exactly.
shit. Thank God, thank God we kept that Second Amendment. Oh boy.
Exactly. So,
Can you imagine if we didn't have the right to bear arms, what our country would look like? Oh, wait a second. All we have to do is go look at London and England.
right, exactly. And so the having the ability to bear arms and to speak freely at the same time kept things civil. And then that's
Isn't
been
it interesting? The freedom of speech was the first amendment they came up with, and then somebody said, "Wait a second. If
this
we're
is the
going to
way
do
to
that,
enforce
we might
it.
as well
Yeah.
have the Second Amendment be the right to bear arms because you're going to need a gun for all the people that come after your freedom of speech."
Right. I'm saying you have to have the Second Amendment to enforce the First Amendment.
That is true. Talk a little bit about how faith matters in your journey along with this, what you're doing. Talk a little bit about how faith matters to you.
Well, I think society is degraded to a level where it's not even about faith. I think that's a secondary thing, if in my opinion. First have to establish right and wrong and up and down and what's true and false, and then you can build faith and you can build upon that. And so once uh, faith, good or bad, is not in my opinion, honestly, is irrelevant until you have a baseline of human decency. And you can't have any human decency if you don't if words aren't true, nothing is true. And so first you have to establish a baseline of facts and truth and what's good and bad, and then you can develop a moral conscience, and then you can evolve faith from there. And that's what I'm going back to, because having an evolved, nuanced faith, which I do, is not doesn't solve the issue at hand. So that's why I'm not
Well,
really focused on that. I'm more focused on business, on what this is bad for business. Telling lies and saying up is down and down is up is bad entirely for the society. It's bad for business. It's bad for, like you said, and you can't have faith if you can't establish a baseline of truth.
we're always going to have people lie to us as long as we have politicians. So at the end of the day, I think faith is one of the things that gives us a roadmap. When the Bible was put together, God put in there certain rules of how to live your life. One of those rules were to tell the truth, to live a
Right.
clean and truth-bearing life. And I always tell people, if you believe in God, you have to believe that the devil exists. And we look around today and we can see demons everywhere on the streets around us. These are people that literally want to destroy other people's lives.
No, I agree. Like I said, so in that context, yes, if like you said, pointing out God created natural law, and he created right and wrong, and so displaying that, expressing that is a form of faith. And so, but I wanted to, like you said, want to get everything back to basics, because you can't, building a house on a shaky foundation is what gets everyone into trouble. And that's where we need to go back to, foundational things of faith and not more the nuanced things. So that's what I was trying to express earlier. So I agree with you.
Awesome. So talk a little about the event itself. It's on the 22nd of October here in Vegas. Where's it
Yeah.
at?
Yeah, it's the brand new hotel. It's on Russell and Decatur. It's called the Autonomous Hotel. It's brand new. It's beautiful, and it's automated by AI. There's an AI concierge, a robotic concierge. You walk in. It's a great place, and the owner and CEO of that hotel and Live Home Developments and other companies, Philippe Ziadi. He came to my first event by chance. He was invited by a real estate agent who's a friend of mine that knew me from the business about 6 years ago. And she came and he liked what we had to say, and she did too. And they said, "Hey, we would love to be a part of this, and maybe the next event can be our hotel, and come check it out." And so I did. It was a fantastic space, and he's like, "I'd like to speak." And he's ultra successful guy, conservative Christian man. He's has 24 companies and is cutting edge of real estate and AI and other things. And we're going to be myself, him, and then Paul Mark Goulet again is going to be speaking on what's going on. And knowledge is that, at the cliche, knowledge is power. It really is, especially when people try to everything people say is, to a certain degree, is not true. And so we're going to be talking about how our values material facts, natural law, faith, etc., wind into business, and the business leaders of this country are the last defense and bastion of really truth, and because we control, like I said, the politics have gotten are ineffective, the just everything's upside down, but the business leaders who employ most of the people in this country and create most of the wealth, there's power.
Shout out
There
to the
not
entrepreneurs out there. They're the
we
hustlers. They're the
cannot. And
ones that
so what
make
happened?
things
Yeah.
go
So
round.
What happened? Charlie Kirk showed me that like I can never, live in my philosophies, live and let live, but not when the other side wants you to die. So,
No. Yeah, it's
so
time to
I
draw a line in the sand and say, listen, this is unacceptable behavior.
right, and that doesn't mean to to be aggressive, but there must be a defense of right and
Actually,
wrong.
I think it's time for men of faith to be aggressive. I really do.
Aggressive in the sense of not attacking, but defending.
Yeah, well,
That's
I
my
mean, at the
position.
end of the day, you have to attack those that are literally doing evil things in the world today. You can no longer be silent when people are saying it's okay to feed children puberty blockers at the age of 9 years old. You got to literally speak out and literally say, no, that
Yes,
is not part of God's plan. That is not part of that kid's plan. And if anybody's going to make decisions about that kid, it's got to be their parents, not some green-haired lunatic teacher.
right. Yeah, and so like you said, defending what's right and what's good and what's true is completely necessary, and it's in the people in power are really, like I said, the business owners, entrepreneurs, etc. in this country who've stayed silent on the sideline, myself included, until now. I thought that was the best way to go, honestly, and I realized I was wrong, and so that's why I created it's called the nonprofit that's leading these events is called the Courage Project. And so we've lost that ability, to have courage. Sorry about
Well, I
that.
think a lot of people for years now, the last 5 years, were afraid to speak out because they're like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my social media account. Oh my God, my boss is going to get mad. And
Right.
the problem with that is when you take away people's courage to speak the truth, you literally degrade society. You take away those of the people that are inside of society that will speak out against evil shit.
No, I agree 100%. And so I'm trying to hold on. Let me see if I can get this ringing to stop. I don't know if you can hear that.
No,
Oh, you can't? Okay, perfect. Just want to make
no,
sure.
it's probably just on your end.
Yeah. Okay. No,
So,
but,
so you've got the
they
event on the
absolutely do.
22nd. When does it start?
So it starts on it's on October 22nd. It starts on at 6:30, goes to 8:30. The first 45 minutes are going to be a networking happy hour. I have fully catered and there's a open bar, and I want people to come in, like I said to your point earlier, have discourse, talk, get to know each other. It's very hard to hate your neighbor when you actually meet them in person and not just see them on a
I
post
mean,
or
I'll be honest with you,
anything like that.
it's not that hard to hate your neighbor if they're evil. If they're literally evil people, it's going to be easy.
Well, those people are going to be there, in my opinion. I'm talking, like you said, other people with like minds. Like you said, people need to come together instead of, like you said, isolate. That's what we did before, and so and try to stay out of the mix. And so people need to come together, get to know each other, and find things that they had commonality and build upon that. And then after, about 45 minutes of people, breaking the ice and being able to talk to one another and see who they are and where they stand in this world. Then we're gonna, like I said, I'm gonna be speaking again. Paul Goulet is gonna be speaking, and then Philippe Ziade is gonna be speaking as well. And like I said, we're gonna be covering different aspects of business leadership and actually speaking the truth of what's going on in society and what actions we can take instead of talking about it. So the time for talk's over. What we can actually do about it, what we're doing about it, and who wants to join us in what we're doing.
So, what's your goal? What do you see happening after this event? What do you want to what do you want to see come of this?
I'd really like it to continue to grow, and I'd like to expand. Like you said, we need to gather all the like-minded forces of, faith, conservative values, and just believers in truth in this country, and we need to rally together and expand and speak. Come forward and not be in hiding, not be isolated, but become, like I said, become a part of something that can actually, you know, bend the curve of history back to where it should be.
Well, Jeremy, I think you're doing great work. I think that kind of stuff is super needed in this time and that we live in. Um, Tell me a little bit about how you overcome fear, because a lot of people don't pursue their dreams. A lot of people don't do things like what you're doing. They let fear hold them back. How do you deal with fear?
Yeah, and I make no judgments because I've failed in that regard many times in my life, and I realized it hurt me, and so when I couldn't, people think that I'm not afraid of anything, or that that people that do things that I'm doing, which I appreciate you saying that are that I don't have fear, that somehow that's just not true. It's just, courage is, that's why I named my nonprofit that I founded the Courage Project. It's not having no fear. It's still doing what's right in the presence of fear, even though there's still fear. It's overcoming that fear. And so that's why you have to lead by example and by action. And that's where I have to go first. And I funded the last event, and I'm fully funding this event with my own money, because you got to put your money where your mouth is and lead by action. Words can only go so far. And so I've overcome my fear, and that's where I've, acquired courage. And then I'm going to be training people with what I'm saying, and our, other speakers, hopefully around the country and at future events and other trainings, on how to essentially acquire the courage to overcome your fear, because it's always going to be there. It could get better, it could get worse. You never know what's going to happen, but it's still pursuing what's right, and even in the presence of fear.
I agree. And you can't let fear hold you back, because that's Satan. That's that what fear is, when the devil's whispering in your ear all the things that can go wrong. And then
Yes.
God is on your other shoulder whispering in your ear all the things that can go right, and telling you to have faith in yourself. And if you have faith in yourself, you can't go wrong.
I agree. It's well said. And we fail at that, but doesn't mean we give up. Like I said, I make no judgments. I've failed, and I've let fear, control my life in many instances, and I'm not proud of it, but I'm not going to live in the past in the more anymore. Or I'm going to push forward and make a change for the better for the future. And I think that's what people don't have in there's a leadership vacuum where there's people don't really know how to do that. Feel like a lot of people do want to do that, but they don't have a mechanism in which to enable that. And I want to provide that.
Awesome. All right, leave people with one inspirational thought, something that will get them to pursue their goals, their dreams, get off their couch.
I mean, it all starts with, like you said, it's 80% of everything is just showing up. And so it goes back to what you're saying, like you said, having faith. You have to have faith in yourself. You have to have faith in God, but you have, like you said, it needs to invest into actions. You don't know what's going to happen. Everyone wants this existed probably since our our existence, but I never thought that my life would end up like this, or I'd be doing anything like this. And so, like, just letting go and being open to the possibility is a huge thing. And I think if people can just step back for a minute and not make it about themselves or what could happen, good or bad, I think the possibilities are endless.
Jeremy, I'll see you on the 22nd. Good job.
Well, thank you very much. I look